Have you ever noticed how you can tell exactly who is walking down the hallway just by the weight of their footsteps? Or how you can sense a shift in the temperature of a room before anyone has even spoken a word? Maybe you've always just called yourself observant or sensitive. But there's a specific kind of quiet exhaustion that comes with being that way. It feels like you're constantly running a background program on a laptop, one that's scanning for threats, calculating exits, and managing other people's emotions before they even feel them. What's interesting is that most people think trauma only looks like a single catastrophic event. They think it's loud, but for many of us, trauma is quiet. It's a series of small, repeated adaptations that became your personality. Today we're going to look at 5 signs that the things you think are just who you are might actually be how you survived. There is a common belief that trauma always leads to acting out, rebellion, anger, or visible chaos. But for many, trauma produces the exact opposite, the perfect child. On the surface, you were the one who never caused trouble. You got the grades, you followed the rules, and you were low maintenance. But the hidden reality is that you weren't low maintenance. You were self-sourcing. You learned very early that your environment was too fragile, or your caregivers were too overwhelmed to handle your needs. So you tucked them away. This is where it gets complicated. When you are praised for being easy, you learn that your value is tied to your invisibility. You start to believe that being good means having no needs at all. If you find yourself constantly apologizing, not because you did something wrong, but because you sense someone else is unhappy, this is a primary sign of an adaptation. Think back to being 7 years old. You're standing in the kitchen, and you hear the car pull into the driveway. Most kids just hear a car. But you're listening for the specific thud of the door. Was it a heavy slam? A tired click? You're listening to the jingle of the keys. You are performing a high-speed data analysis of the atmosphere before the person even crosses the threshold. In psychology, we call this hypervigilance. It's the vocabulary gift of the survivor. It isn't just being jumpy. It's a state of constant, forced awareness. Your brain is a high-fidelity radar system. As a child, this was survival intelligence. If you could predict the mood, you could adjust your behavior to stay safe. But as an adult, it means you can never truly relax, even when you're alone. Your nervous system is still waiting for the thud of the door. Do you find that your personality, your tone of voice, and even your interests shift, depending on who you're talking to? On the outside, this looks like being socially fluid, or a people person. But internally, it feels like a hollow space, where a self should be. This is a trauma response known as fawning. When a fight or flight response isn't an option because you're a child and you can't leave, your brain chooses a third option: appease. You become whatever the person in front of you needs you to be, so that they won't be a threat to you. The duality here is painful. You want to be known, but you fear that being real will lead to rejection or conflict. So, you wear the mask. The shadow version of this is the perfectionist controller. You try to control everyone's perception of you, because if you can control what they think, they can't hurt you. One of the most overlooked signs of living with trauma responses is the ability to be too calm in a crisis. When things go wrong, an accident, a deadline, a confrontation, everyone else panics, but you go cold. You become incredibly efficient. You handle the logistics, you make the calls, you stay level-headed. People admire you for it. But the part people don't see is that you aren't actually calm. You've just dissociated. Your brain has cut off the connection to your emotions, because feeling them would interfere with survival. You've learned to treat your own body like a machine. The trade-off truth is that while this helps you survive the crisis, you also can't turn back on for the good things. If you numb the pain, you accidentally numb the joy too. You end up feeling like an observer in your own life. Finally, there is the inability to simply be. If you feel a sense of guilt or itchiness when you try to relax, that is a trauma response. For a child in an unpredictable home, doing nothing was dangerous. Staying busy was a way to stay under the radar, or to prove your worth. Your brain developed this as high-fidelity environmental scanning. In the wild, you would have been the scout, the one who kept the tribe safe because you never stopped watching the horizon. It was a survival gift, but in a modern living room it feels like a curse. It feels like an engine that won't turn off, even when the car is parked. The cost of these adaptations is high. You spend so much energy managing the world around you that you have very little left for the world inside you. You think you are too sensitive. No, you are only highly attuned. You aren't fake. You are protective. You aren't broken. You are adapted. You see, being hyper-aware, people-pleasing, emotionally numbing, was once a brilliant solution to an impossible problem. You didn't choose these traits because you were weak. You developed them because you were smart enough to figure out how to survive. But the environment has changed. You aren't that 7-year-old in the kitchen anymore. The car door in the driveway doesn't have the same power over you that it used to. Healing isn't about fixing these parts of yourself. It's about thanking the scout inside you for keeping you safe for so long, and gently letting them know that they can finally come in from the cold. You are allowed to be more than just a survivor. You are allowed to have a self that isn't defined by what others need from you. Take a breath. Notice where your shoulders are. Are they up by your ears? Let them drop. You're safe now. If any of this felt like looking into a mirror, just know that you aren't alone in that reflection. If you're ready to look a little closer, feel free to stay a while. We're all just learning how to turn the radar off together.